Okay. We're starting Siman Kuf Nun Dalet today. Siman Kuf Nun Gimel, which we finished, discusses mainly damages and uses that a person does in his friend's chatzar, and how you do a chazaka in your friend's chatzar. There are certain kinds of damages and usages that you do in your own chatzar and could cause damage to somebody else. And that is discussed in Siman Kuf Nun Dalet, and mainly in Siman Kuf Nun Hey. But Siman Kuf Nun Dalet, in the beginning, goes into something which is a little bit different, which is discussing the rights of partners when they own a chatzar, a partnership, a chatzar, and a partnership is two houses or more, that the chatzar is owned together, and what's the rights of shutfim to be able to do what they're allowed to do in their shared property. Now, the first two Sa'ifim in Kuf Nun Dalet, to a certain degree, have more common shilas come up out of these two Sa'ifim than out of a lot of other Sa'ifim that you're going to have in these Simanim. Because you could have that applies in any form of, it could apply to various forms of apartment buildings, shared houses, etc., or chatzeros which have houses in them, v'chol. So Seif Aleph, the Shulchan Aruch begins with, you have two shutfim, or we use the example of two shutfim, two people who are partners in one chatzar. There's two houses opened into this chatzar. One is owned by Reuven, one is owned by Shimon. And now Reuven decides he wants to go and buy another house, which is outside this chatzar, but it's connected to this chatzar. And he wants to go and open up a door from the new house that he just bought, the second house that he bought, into the chatzar where him and Shimon are partners from before. It means there was a chatzar with two houses, and now Reuven wants to add a third house to join into the shared chatzar. A typical example, if you would think of, would be more common if there is a bungalow colony. We have 10, 12 bungalows, and then there's no more bungalows over there, and somebody has family over there, or somebody wants to bring his kids. So he'll buy a property behind the bungalow colony, and we'll say he wants to open up a gate. In the gate, there should be access from that property to the joint property. So be something, dvarim shebechol yom, these kinds of things. The Mechaber says, the big machlekes, Mechaber Amoy, you can see the cross in Siman, in Sif Aleph and Sif Beis. The Mechaber says you can't, and the reason is explained a few words later. It adds more people going through this chatzar. What does it mean more people are going through the chatzar? That is going to be on average, and this is also important to remember, something which most of you learned last year, whoever was here, a chatzar is a place which has more usage. Tashmishay tznius are done in a chatzar more than in a mavoi. And a chatzar, certain things are done, the person is more comfortable in his chatzar. You can have more people going through. There's certain things you're not going to be comfortable doing it. There's more hazakriya, etc. You
mentioned that nowadays hazakriya isn't so much.
Depends where. It depends what it is. Depends.
In case you're saying a Bokum family, you be able to find hazakriya, or we can say like a mavoi.
That's the question is what it is. The question is according to Mechaber, according to Ramah. The hazakriya, the question is what's included in it, and the definition is a person. The other person, Shimon says, until now I had one neighbor, now I have 3 neighbors. I'm not ready for it. So basically, you could understand there's marbe all of the diurim in two ways. That there's a lot of people going to start marching through the chatzar, or that there is the hazakriya element, and essentially both. There's two reasons which are interconnected, and technically being that there's no specific understanding to say that one element is more important than the other, you could say according to the Mechaber, either or is a problem. That means even if there is no not much has a kriya, but there's a lot of people marching through. You could explain that, or you could say that both reasons are connected, and the marbe olav haderech is essentially just, there's more people going through, there's going to be shaila of has a kriya. Nafkamin is, if there's going to be a situation where you have one and not the other, where you have marbe olav, the more people are marching through, but there's no issue of has a kriya, then what the din would be in such a case, and the classic thing would be, this is what you're going to see later, if these dinim apply only in the chatzir, or they also apply in the mavitz, machlekes Rash Baritva, not that it's specifically connected to this, machlekes Rash Baritva in Bava Basra, whether it applies only to a chatzir or also to a mavit. And if you're going to say that there's marbe olav haderech, but there is no real issue of has a kriya because it's not really a chatzir or it's something similar to a mavit, then you would have this question. A dayan is going to have to sit and decide l'shitas hamechaber if a person has a right to be marbe diurim when there is no shaila of has a kriya, or there is no shaila of has a kriya whatsoever.
The pashtus, a bungalow is
Huh?
a bungalow is the pashtus that case, where it's not really a has a kriya problem. Assuming that people are walking around all the time anyway.
Depends. I don't know. Some people might be comfortable around the people that they're used to, family members, and not comfortable around some new person. So you go and you open up to a random person, it's going to be a problem. Okay, so now, and the Nesivus has a question over here. Later on in this siman, you're going to see that somebody who has already one opening to a chatzir cannot open a second opening to the chatzir. Yeah? Be later on in the siman. So the question is, Nesivus asks over here, what's the big chiddush over here that you say that you can't, if you buy a new house in a different chatzir, you can't open up a door to the chatzir? What's the greatest chiddush? We already know you can't even open from your own house a second door. So what are you trying to tell us by now by saying that you're going to open, that you're opening from a different chatzir? So no, there's no chiddush. So he says over here, very simple. Over here we're talking about that the original agreement was that each person is allowed to open as many doors, as many openings as he wants from his house to the chatzir. Doesn't have to ask reshus for every doorway that he's opening. He has full access from his house to the chatzir, whichever way he wants to do it. He has, as long as it's this original purchaser, the two shutfim are, listen, you want to open up one door, gesundheit, you want to open up a second door, it's fine with me, it doesn't bother me, one door, two doors, three doors. That's what they agreed to mechatchil. But if it's, and on this he tells you that still in all, this is not enough of a reason to open up a door from a new property next that you're going to buy. And but the Shoshanas Yaakov says that this is a dochuk tirutz, and he says, and the Sivas HaMishpat probably did not see or missed what the Knesset Agdela writes in the name of the Maharas Hasan, that over here we're talking about this siman, we're talking about this seif, we're talking about chatzir hashutfim, that in chatzir hashutfim there is reshus to open more doors originally, and Sif Daled is talking about opening another door to your friend's chatzir. So if you have one door to your friend's chatzir over there, then the teretz is you're not allowed to open a second door. Over here, we're talking about that it's a chatzir hashutfim, so you anyways have a right to do it. It's not about that they made a deal mechatchil that you're allowed to open up one door or two doors. A chatzir hashutfim, you're allowed to open up as many doors as you want. And therefore, one is talking about opening, over here is talking about opening to chatzir hashutfim, and therefore the mechaber has to tell you that even though you're allowed to open up an extra door for yourself, you're not allowed to open up a door from a new property. And Sif Dal is talking about when you want to open up another door to your friend's chatzir, and over there it's obviously usher, because whatever the friend gave you, that's all that he gave you. And the Ramah essentially disagrees with it. But before we get to what the Ramah says, before we get to the Ramah's disagreement, because the Ramah's disagreement is in the end of the Seif, first go to what the Ramah mentions over here. The Ramah over here gives you a very big klal, which you could say it could apply only to the Mechaber, only to the Ramah, or you could say it applies to Mechaber and to the Ramah, both. And the klal is over here that a shutif in a chatzir, every person who's in a chatzir, cannot make any changes from what was originally bought, the way it was originally bought, the way it was originally established, or the way he bought it, or the way he yarshened it. Whatever, the way it's established, that's the way you keep it going. It's not, once something is established in a certain way, you as a shutif, everything is in place, you can't go and make unilateral changes without the other person's approval. The Pamayna Zav points out that based on this Ramah, and he brings it from the Tokfei Shel Yosef, it's a sefer from Rabbi Yosef al-Maliach, Siman Kuftes. Obviously, we're talking about the construction of the project is finished, and the construction stopped, and they're already nisyayish from building any further. But if there's still, the two shutfim are still busy building, they still didn't conclude construction, and each one could, you want to put another door, you want to put another floor, whatever it is, you're allowed to do whatever you want during the construction phase, and even according to the Ramah, it's talking about only past when construction is over. The Aruch HaShulchan in Sifkat and Hey points out that you should just know that if it all really boils down to what was originally agreed to in the beginning, so if the two shutfim agreed to in the beginning that each one has a right to add another floor, let's say, each one builds 2 floors and each one has a right to add a 3rd floor, or each one has a right to build a porch, and that's what they agreed to in Chatchila, and one person did it and one person did not do it, and then a few years later he wants to do it, he did not lose his rights, and it's not considered that he was moichel his schuyas. Very simple reason, a person could say, yes, I had a right to make a 3rd floor, and so did you. You have more money than me. At that point, you were able to put a 3rd floor, which is another $100,000, and put a porch, and build a garage. I don't have as much money as you. So I still kept my rights. Now I saved up money for the next 10 years. Now I want to build, I want to put the 3rd, I want to make the addition now, I want to make the porch now, I want to make the garage now. He didn't lose his schuyas just because the original agreement, it all boils down to the original agreement. The original agreement was each person has a right to do certain things. Those certain things continue weiter. Now, there's a certain interesting diuk in the Gra Sifkot and Beis, you could be medayik from it, that it all boils down to minhag. Aside because if they agree to, it's called Tnai Kayim, called Teshuv Mammon Kayim, there's no Chiddush. It seems like from the Lashon of the Gra and Sifkot and Beis, that it also boils down to the minhag, that you can't really get away with doing whatever you want during construction, unless the minhag is to do certain things. But if you can't say, in the middle of construction, I'm going to build a 6th-floor building on a property, and you're going to have a bungalow on the other side, or I'm going to build a massive structure which was never intended originally. You look at what's considered customary in these places. If you look if you want to know what the minhag is, the mashal in New York, there's no minhagim. The minhag is you have to follow what the state laws are. That's the minhag, because they're the ones who are going to block you from doing things. So if you look on a regular street, what's it is? So it used to be that each house has a certain code. You could go 4 floors, 2 floors, 6 floors. Then afterwards, they basically, as if you want to build, you have to look at the highest building on the highest structure on the block. So even if your house is zoned as an R6, which you could build 6 floors, if along the whole block, people only went up 3 floors, you're not going to be able to go higher than 3 floors for a house. You have to get a special variance. If you make a community center, then you get an extra floor, etc. But these are question of codes. But you can look at, that's a minhag. It doesn't look nice. You go on a block and all the houses are 3 floors, and in the middle you have a 6-floor story thing, which is different. Other places, the minhag is also what to use. In Yerushalayim, Lamashal, there's, according to law, you're not allowed to use stone that's not Yerushalayim stone on the front of your house. In the back, you can do whatever you want, but the face that's facing the street. To be able to build a 770 in Ramat Shlomo, they had to get a special special go through, get approval from the city for that purpose. Because minhag hamokim, it's the law and it's minhag. There's a certain style to the city, and you can't go different than what it is. So that's essentially this point of here. So obviously, if they make a Tanai is Kayam. Even if there's no Tanai, you have to look at the minhagim. The Taz comes and asks a question on this halacha of the Mechaber. The Mechaber says you can't open up not the Mechaber. I mean, on this point that you can't on the Ramah, that you can't that once it's built you can't change anything. The Taz asks a very simple question. During construction, I had a right to build whatever. I had a right to open a second door. What caused my change of losing rights? It means what happened that after construction I lost my rights to open up a door? It can't be like what happened what changed in my bilus? My bilus was the same. We bought the property together. During construction I was able to do it. So you mean to tell me that the moment my contractor has finished the touch-ups, suddenly I lost all my rights that I had until then? Like what occurs halachically at that moment when construction is finished on both properties? Construction is finished on mine, construction is finished on yours. They're both finished, let's say, at the same time. Both are finished. What changes? Something has to change in the halachically, in the metzias, to be able to make you lose all the schusim that you had until now.
According to the Taz, he's understanding that during the building phase you can do whatever you want.
Within the limitations of what they agreed to, etc. But I'm saying is afterwards.
Then nothing does change, you're saying.
Huh?
If they agreed to open, let's say, an extra door, and after
they didn't agree.
They do it at the time.
It means you're allowed to do whatever is let's say, within the minhag, or they didn't make any agreement. Within the minhag is that when I buy a house, and we buy houses in a certain place, I'm allowed to do, as long as the inspections approve it, I'm essentially allowed to do whatever I want to my house. Right? I can make second door.
Let's say it's two people here. It's not about the city. It's about the
Right. But the Shulchan didn't make any conditions how many doors are going to be opened towards the outside. So technically I was allowed to open up one door from the first floor, and one door from the basement, and one door from the back, and one door from the side.
And we're not going to say since that's the minhag hamokim, automatically that's the rights you get?
No. No, because there's no minhag hamokim how many doors to have in the house. There's a minimum amount you're supposed to have. Each floor is supposed to have an access to outside, somehow. But if it's more than a certain, according to law, but there's no minhag how many doors each house is supposed to have.
Right, but you said before, so you can't just start going and do whatever you want because it's construction.
Right, but the question is how, if they make a condition, but opening doors is not something which you have to make a condition on. Opening doors is easier. If I want to open up a door from the basement, that's not something which there's a minhag one way or the other.
So how we monitor? So there are things that are for sure you can't do.
You can't build 6 floors. That's for sure not the minhag.
LP a minhag, let's say it's allowed.
A minhag it's not allowed. If a minhag is allowed, let's say a minhag it is allowed. A place where there's no restrictions. A minhag it is allowed, and they made a deal not to, then it's also even during construction.
That's what I'm saying.
They didn't make any deal.
No deal, and they're only, so with no deal, they still have to follow the minhag hamokim.
Minhag hamokim is you're allowed to build 6 floors and 4 doors.
They don't get the right to the minhag hamokim unless they do.
They get the right, so now, if they don't do it, then. So that's what the Taz asks. It says you built it, and it all was set in stone. And you didn't make a condition, meikare. You only have the minhag hamokim. You did lose your rights. That's what Taz understands it. You did lose your rights. If you made a deal, that's what Aruch HaShulchan says. You made a deal milchatchila is one thing. The deal, you don't lose your deal. But minhag hamokim you lose. Because the minhag hamokim is you could build 1 door, 2 doors, or 4 doors. You decided to do the minhag hamokim of 2 doors. Doesn't mean now you can come and say, oh, minhag hamokim gives me 4 doors. I want to open up 2 more 10 years down the line. And that's what the Taz asks. What happens at the moment of construction concludes? Something has to change. So he says, so he says that, he says simple, he says when a person does construction, when construction is still being built, each person still didn't assert what schuyos come with his doors. Each door has for example, doors is daled amas, right? Each door has daled amas in front of it. So if I open up, and there's also Shiloh has a kriya, So if I open up 2 doors from my house, each door has daled amas. And the other guy opened 2 doors from his house, each door has daled amas. The rest of the chutzner gets split 50-50. What happens if now I want to come and I want to make a 3rd door? I'm essentially taking away from him something that he had a right to. Because since construction was already finished and everything was set in place, now I'm going to cause a hezek to somebody else by taking something which already became established that it's not so. Or he already started doing, if my doors and his doors are not aligned to each other. So on one side of my house, in one side of the chutzner, I did not have any door going out there. I only have maybe the bathroom windows facing over there, so nobody's looking out those windows. So he got comfortable with certain things that are hezek. And then I come and I want to open up a door on that side. He says, you're causing me a hezek. Meikara, you could have done it. Meikara, yeah, I don't know. If Meikara, you would have put your door there, I would have not built my pool on that side. Or something, put my kiddie pool over there. Now you put it there, I have to move my kiddie pool somewhere else. I don't have anywhere else, because now you have doors on all sides of your house. I have nowhere to go, I have windows everywhere. What am I going to do? So that's what the Taz says. So you're causing him, therefore, after construction is over, when each one's rights are established, that's when it becomes a hezek. So the Taz says, but from the Rosh, it's not mashma like that, right? Because the Rosh is discussing the 2 people that bought a churva together, and one built an aliyah, one built and they agreed that each one could build on it, and one built the 2nd floor that he built, they agreed they're going to build it in the churva. One person is getting the bottom floor, one person is getting the top floor, and the one on the top floor built a flimsy structure. He didn't build a permanent structure. He built a sunroom, what you call it, just a bunch of walls with windows, cheap walls. And now he wants to come, he wants to make it permanent. He wants to put bricks on top. Baal Aliyah wants to now make, so the one on the bottom says, hey, when we bought it together, yes, each one of us had equal rights. You were able to build an aliyah, and you built your sunroom with thin walls. Now you want to convert it to a full floor with solid walls. It's going to cause weight problems to the floor under it. We never agreed to it. So over there, the Rosh says that he doesn't lose his rights. So the Taz says, we're left, according to the Rosh, we still have a question. How does it work that you don't lose what, according to the Rosh, you shouldn't lose it. So why over here you lose your schusim for opening up another door after construction is over? And then the Mishnah says, no, it's also good, even according to the Taz, and he explains the Taz that way. He says the whole Yesod of the Taz remains. When you convert something light to something heavy, you're not changing the other person's chazakah. The other person's chazakah remains his chazakah. He still has his 1st floor. You didn't take away anything from him. His ownership remains his ownership. Elamai, you could argue that some of the weight might cause damage down the line. That's not part of the discussion. But in opening, he says, no, every door gets daldamas. And you have a shayla of hezekriya. And after you finish construction, whatever was not open in front of the door, like I told you before, belongs to the shutfim. And even though you're allowed to open before, or whether you're allowed to open as many doors as your friend opened, or according to minig, as many doors as minig medina, now you can't anymore. What was done, and what you didn't do, you lost your rights.
I don't know. About if anything worse, because you
Huh?
can break the house. About if anything worse, because you can break the house. How do you...
But Meikare, I agreed with you that I'm going to build a 2nd floor, you're going to build the 1st floor. Which means you should have built your house strong enough to hold my 2nd floor. I didn't tell you I'm going to put just a sukkah up there. I didn't have money, so I put a bunch of mechitzas over there. I put temporary walls up there. I put styrofoam. I used it as storage. Now I have money, I want to do it. So I didn't lose the rights. But over here, once it's already established, it's established. Then the Mechaber continues. Okay, so this is what the Ramah puts over here in a explanation of the Mechaber. Before the Ramah disagrees with the Mechaber later on, but the Mechaber continues that just like you're not allowed to open up a door from a house outside the chutzner, you bought into the chutzner a shutfim, same thing applies if you add a 2nd floor on your house and you want to open up a door straight from the 2nd floor to the chutzner, you're also not allowed to for the same reason. Because you're adding more people. What's this idea of adding more people? It basically means if you have another unit with another door, you could rent it out. There's going to be more people coming in. And therefore, it's going to cause more hezekriya, etc. And the Smith says it doesn't only apply if you built a new house, because the Mechaber talks about you built a new floor. He says no, it's not only if you built a new floor, it's also if you already had a second floor, and now you just want to break open from the second floor and make a stairwell straight down to the chutzner, it's also aser. Yeah, and this, which essentially it basically boils down to, is that if you want to look at the Ramah until now, it's you look at how it was built meikare, could you add more to the original construction? And according to the Mechaber, it's you add more people marching through the property. So which obviously means that if I want to open up a second door to the chutzner, but there's not going to be anybody else going there because there's nobody. The place is not going to be. There's not many people going through over there. Then maybe, according to the Mechaber, it will still be fine. And according to the Ramah,
Who's the Mechaber? Which shit does he point with if that's the case?
becomes the problem because it doesn't fit with the Rambam. It looks as the Mechaber took two shittas together. Certain points from certain shittas. We're going to get to it soon. But again, that's if you look at it that way, or you could say that Ramah is just explaining what the Mechaber says, and according to the Mechaber, you still will not be able to open up, even if you're not moisif hiluch. Because if it's a shaila of hezekriya, then you're not moisif more people. If there's no hezekriya and there's no diurim, then what's the problem of opening a second door according to the Mechaber? According to the Rambam. The Rambam, the Mechaber is based on.
Because it's not what the Bnei Chatzar accepted.
What's the reason why the Bnei Chatzar accepted? They want to have issues with each one. If I have a second door going down, and I'm not adding any more daled amos, yeah? What's the issue with adding a second door? Mitzad hezekriya? If I have a porch in front of my house, big porch, and there's one door on the left side, and I want to open up a door on the right side. And now there's going to be two stairwells going down to the chutzner. He's going to go to the porch and two stairwells rather than one stairwell in the middle going down. Or two stairwells out of the porch. Is that changing anything? I sat in the porch the whole time. There was always the same hezekriya, not moisif any diurim. According to the Rambam, you're not moisif diurim and you're not moisif ribuy aderech.
Also, according to the Rambam, you could ask why, but he says clearly that what you get is usher.
If what?
Opening another door, according to the Rambam, opening another door is not allowed.
Because shemoisif olav.
Right, but we're not saying only in a case where, because we make the chiluk, if another door is a problem.
Because of that reason. So you could argue if the Rambam would say that it's usher even when you don't have any of the issues. You could argue about it. Lav dafka. From the Pashas Lashon Rambam, it's usher any change in the construction. From the Pashas Lashon Rambam, it's usher any change of construction, and the reason of Marbel of Diurim is an excuse, essentially. But you could argue it lav dafka itself.
So you're pointing out you're not allowed to build a second house even if you're not putting in diurim?
Huh?
You're pointing out you can't build a second house even if there's no extra diurim?
Build a
Even if
second.
there's no extras, you're not bringing anyone new. You're still not allowed to build a...
If it's opening a new door into the chutzner, then it's a problem. Opening another door into the chutzner becomes a problem. By the way, the Shas HaTshuvas Shemesh Tzedakah and Cheshmish V'Salon Amadal, it says if you're talking about a place, a mokim, a city, where nobody has these kinds of complaints about Ribuy Aderech, the Dayanim never got such complaints before, it becomes that Le'nohagu, a minhag not to be makpid, and you can't be ma'akev. A new person can't come and say, hey, I want to be ma'akev because of lahar b'sol of aderech, and he brings from the meiri that this is only, this dinim of lahar b'sol aderech only applies, and the meiri follows the shit of the Rambam, it's only b'mokim shanoagu lahakpid, but today, the meiri says today, in his days, we're not makpid anymore, and we're happy that there's more Yidden living together, and therefore, he says, these things are something that gets cancelled if the minhag HaMokim changes, and therefore the Shemesh Tzedakah says, therefore the Dayan has to be careful, it brings based on the Me'iri, the Dayan has to be careful and look at what it is, and not just say, be ma'akev, or not just say, don't be ma'akev. Like, look at, see what makes sense according to the minhag of the place, what makes sense, lefi hazman v'hamokim, the time and the place. The Mechaber continues then in the same seif, that you could open up an aliyah on top of your house, you could make a new aliyah on top of your house, and open up only into your house. You're not opening up a new door into the chutzner. And the same thing would apply to build an additional house in the chutzner, an additional structure, an extension to your house in the chutzner, which would be opened only towards your house, an extension from your house inwards. That's how and to open from it the door, that's what the Smer right away points out. Or to buy a house in a property behind, and that it should only be open to your chutzner. It should only be open up to your house, not to your chutzner. And over here you see the Mechaber passing like in the Mukhi Yosef, that you could add another aliyah, you could add an aliyah on top of your house. He paskins like the Rif and the Ramban that you could extend your house, or you could buy in the next chutzner as long as it doesn't open up to the chutzner. And the logic behind it is that as long as, if you do an extension in such a way, or an aliyah, or buy another house in such a way that you're able to rent it out to somebody else, and it's going to cause marba diurim, then you have a problem. If it has an independent door. But if you just want to extend your house, there's no issur. And that is also one of the things, for example, if you know what's a legal basement needs to have in New York, a door straight to the street. An illegal basement, and that's why the Mechaber also says that you have to close. That's the reason Mechaber says that if you buy a house in the chutzner next door, and you want to then go and connect it to your house, you have to block the door from that house, new house, that opens to their own chutzner. That means there's a chutzner that house is in. You want to buy in the chutzner behind you and connect it only to your house to extend your house. That's fine as long as you block the other door. Why? Because you don't want people are going to just knock on your door and say, hey, I have to cut through. I don't want to walk around both chatzeres. It's raining outside. I just want to cut through to go into the other place. And that's what the Kesef Mishnah explains. The Kesef Mishnah explains that the Kesef Mishnah is mentioned in the Shach, and you could look at it. Or because if you leave the other opening that you have to open towards the other chutzner, you'll still be able to rent it out to somebody else, and then it's going to start people marching in. That's a Maral Bach says. Now, by the way, the Rabbi Kiva Eger in Chelik Aleph Siman Kuf Nun Bey says that based on this Mechaber, based on this logic of the Mechaber, that the issue is that you're building an extension or opening a door in such a way is usher if the point is that you're going to be able to rent it out to other people. He says, if you build an aliyah, and you open it up into your lobby, that means you have in your house what they call a mudroom, the entrance room. You walk in, and from there you have a door to go into your house, but it's all yours. And now you're going to build a second floor, and you're going to make a door, a stairwell going down to the same mudroom. And then that's also usher, because that still makes it in such a way that it's fit to be maskir, to rent it out to other people. According to Mechaber, it would still be, even according to the Mechaber, it will still be usher. Even though you're not opening up a new door to the chutzner. You're opening up a new door to your entryway. You're opening up a new door to your porch. It's still within your property. You're not opening it up to the chutzner. Still, because by that way you're going to be able to be moisef diurim, then it's usher according to the Ramah for sure. According to Mechaber, it seems like it's usher. And if you look in the Ulam HaMishpat on this Seif, he medayik from the Rambam also that it's the same way. Now, the Ramah comes and disagrees. The Ramah comes and brings the Shittas HaCholkim. All the Shittas are mentioned in the Beis Yosef. The Rishonim which the Mechaber follows, the Rishonim which the Ramah follows. Tafilu tech beisei asur lefaschoi. Even to open up, to buy a house or whatever it is, we'll soon get exactly which which ones are we talking about? Even into your own house, you're not allowed to open. The Smen, Sifkot and Dalet says, what are we talking about? A house in the Chatzar, in a separate Chatzar, that you have a house, you bought a house in the Chatzar next door, and that's a Smen, Sifkot and Dalet says, and you want to open up from that into your own house, that is still Asur, but to add to your house within the same Chatzar, that's Mutter. The Siman Mishpat disagrees and says doesn't make sense. He says, what's enough? He doesn't agree. He asks, what's enough commitment between one and the other? What difference is there if I build an extension behind my, according to the Ramah, according to the Smeh, the way he understands the Ramah, according to the Smeh, the way he understands the Ramah, that it only applies to a different Chatzar, but not to this Chatzar. He says, what's the logic behind it? Opening up, why is it, if it's Asur to open up from a different Chatzar, even straight to my house, why would it be mutter to put a house behind my house and open it within the same chatzar and open it into my house? What changes is there? So he says that you have to look at the shibud, general shibud. He says when you have a chatzar and within the same chatzar, so anything, each person has has the rights and the obligations to whatever is within the square of the chatzar. So if I'm not creating a new rental unit, and I'm not creating anything new, according to the Ramah, the issue is this chatzar was already meshubad. What's in this chatzar is already meshubad. So the fact that I have a part of my property that's fully mine within this chatzar, I'm able to build an extension of it and opening it to my house, I didn't lose those original rights, because milchatchila during the construction time I would have been able to build over there. Would have been able to build my house an extra 20 feet back. Only now, because of that, you want to say I can't open a new door. I agree with you. But the extension rights, that I never lost. Masha'enkein, a separate property, a different chatzar, that was never meshubah to this general partnership over here. It says it was never meshubah. That's why the Ramah says over there, it is asur.
The Smeh says the exact same thing. The Smeh literally says that.
That's meshubah?
Yeah, that's the term he uses. He says that all the chotzer meshubah lachadorim amsuraf in the bayis sheim kvar.
And therefore?
Actually, tchel lachotzer, same thing. In other words, that's
so what's the Nesivos explaining over there?
No, he's asking and answering.
That's what it seems like the Nesivos is asking and answering on it. He takes it and he asks the question and he says, based on the way he asks the question, and goes back to it. Now, what happens if you actually did go and you built and you didn't, and you built and you opened and whatever else you did, you violated this sif, and you bought next door, and you opened the door to the chatzar, and there was no mechor from the other people, from the other shutzim in the chatzar. 3 years passed, less than 3 years passed. What's the din? Doesn't say what the din is over here, but you could really would boil down to how big of a hezek would you define this? Is this a hezek so big that Chazaka doesn't help, or is this a small hezek that Chazaka does help?
Pesach, the whole story why he said he was not going to Pesach is because he was, the only reason why he can't go to Pesach is that he was massive. So, the same time that we have to massive, they shouldn't mask you, if we can mask, they should have.
Yeah, but if it depends what kind of hezek. If it's a big enough hezek, he can't be machzik, so to think. I don't know. Is it a big enough hezek?
He had the right to begin with, right? It's just that once he finished construction,
no, but if it's from a different property I'm talking about. If I violated I bought in the property behind, and I opened the door, and I rented it out, everything wrong. I was medayik to do everything against the Shulchan Aruch. If I'm machzik or not. So the shayla, if it's a hezek gadol or not, I don't know what the answer is. You have to determine, it's the kind of thing that you will determine based on the situation. And we're going to go to Sif Beis now. With that, try to finish Sif Beis today. If one of the people again, you have over here the Machlekes Mechaber Ramah. Start with the Mechaber. The Mechaber says if you have a person has brings into his house, didn't extend his house. The first sif was extending your house. Second sif is didn't extend your house, but you brought new permanent residents into your house from a different chatzar. Not guests. Guests is a different category. The second shutuf could be ma'akev on him. Why? Again, the same reason. There's more people drengzach over there. There's less sneers than what was before. And the same thing applies if the one person rents out his house to somebody else, and that person then goes and brings extra people to live over there on a regular basis. The masker could be ma'akev on him if it's regular basis. But erchim, which are not kavua, as a separate, the Aruch HaShulchan points out that it's not, nobody could be ma'akev, just regular erchim. And this you can see in Shulchan Aruch afterwards about the people that smuchim al shulchanei, but that's people who permanently live there and are smuchim al shulchanei. We're talking about just regular guests. There's nobody has a right to be ma'akev. There are those shittas that say that a masker could be ma'akev, as opposed to, we're going to get to soon, a masker could be ma'akev subletting, it could be ma'akev even erchim, if it's a lot. And the Mechaber continues that if they are smuchim al shulchanei, then he cannot be ma'akev. What does a smuchim al shulchanei mean? This is from the Magid Mishneh, according to the Rambam. Why is that? Because when the masker rents out to you the property, the Magid Mishneh is talking about specific, mentions the word adata dehachi hiskir lohem, something like that. That there was hiskir lohem, that when a person rents a property, he rents it for him and for whoever he's going to feed. The Aruch HaShulchan, just the way he phrases this, he adds the words bechinam. That it's only when they eat smuchim al shulchanei bechinam. They eat for free. They're being fed by you. They're being fully taken care of by you. Huh? Aruch HaShulchan. Right in the beginning. The Aruch HaShulchan doesn't clearly specify what happens if they pay to eat. They're staying by you. They're eating on your table, but they participate in the meal.
If they're paying, it's not samach al shulchanei. They're paying.
What does samach al shulchanei mean? They're eating together. They're mishtatev in some part of the itzas. I don't know specifically. What is it if they pay for their food? They're being fed by you, but they pay you.
Why are they being fed by you? Because you're serving them the food.
Yeah.
That's not.
They're not fully independent. That means if you rent out to somebody, you rent everything to him. He has his own kitchen, he has everything, he has his own electricity bill, everything together. If you have people in your house, but they're there permanently and they pay, but they're part of the family. Huh?
It's called a renter.
It's called a boarder. It's not called a renter.
It's a form of renting.
It's not a form of renting. You're not renting anything. You're getting a bed and you're getting food. It's like a hotel, to a certain degree. The Imre Yosher, Chelik Aleph Siman Tzadik Ches, it's worth it to go through that tshuva, goes four important points over here. He says if that's his parnasa, that he brings people into the house and he takes care of their needs and they pay him for it, then there's no more daita dehachi. The masker was never rented it for him to open up a center to feed people. The erech shai.
Who's parnasa? The person that's the masker?
The soicher is parnasa. The soicher is a problem over here. The erech shai says that this is clearly that the Magid Mishneh. If you look in the Magid Mishneh uses the lashon that on this das hiskir loy. You rented it out for him. That means that this restriction that you're not allowed to have boarders in your house for pay is only by a soicher if there was no specific condition. But if by a shutef, there's no the other shutef can't tell him you can't have according to Mechaber, you can't have people in the property that pay you to eat and to sleep in your house. But by a seicher, that's what it is. It depends on the t'nai. So if there was a condition that he can't accept, if the condition meikara was you cannot bring boarders into the house, permanent people who eat over there, or you can't even bichlal have guests in the house for more than a certain amount of time, then the soicher, this is what I mentioned, the Shai says the masker has the right to block the soicher from having people coming into the house for that purpose. By shutif, By shutif, no. By shutif, since by soicher it's all based on the tanoim. That's why he's medayik from the Maggid Mishnah. By soicher it's based on the tanai that they made mechatchila. By a shutif, it's not so. By a shutaf meikara, it's a person is allowed to do mitzvahs in his house. Chas Zerchim is a mitzvah, and therefore you are allowed to. So the Zachar Lavram disagrees completely with this. And this is also mentioned in the Erech Shai. The Erech Shai in the same Imri Yoshe. Imri Yoshe says, brings this Zachar Lavram that even by a mask, even by a soicher, and even if the people who are boarding over there eat smuchim al shulchanai, but they pay for it, he's still not allowed to be ma'akev. But he says, the Imri Yoshe says, that this only applies to Yidden because we could discuss that it's included in the Achnas HaSeichim. And even though the Imri Yoshe doesn't clearly mention it, the Avraham Avinu did the Achnas HaSeichim, but he charged him for it, right? If he didn't want to bench. Still considered Achnas HaSeichim. And so you have over here a situation, it says that only Yidden it applies to, that you're allowed to, that you can't be ma'akiv guests, even if they are for pay. The Imri Yoshe goes another step further and he says, yes, we have a lot of these restrictions on the Seicher and on the Shutif. Are you allowed to bring people? Are you not allowed to bring people? Are they Achsanaim or not Achsanaim? All this only applies if they stay overnight. If they permanently sleep over there. You're moisif diyurim, but they permanently sleep over there. But if you have these people that are coming to your house only daytime, and you take care of their needs, and they pay you for it, then it's mutter even if you get paid for it, even by a seicher. The big nafkaminas over here would go if you have guests, you bring guests into your house for Tishrei and you're renting a property, you bring guests into your house and you're charging them for it, for feeding them. If you have people who get paid to take care of people, sometimes you have people that get kids that they're boarding, or you have old people that they take care of. If they're only coming to you during the daytime and they're going to sleep somewhere else at night, somebody who only feeds people during daytime and for free, but they don't sleep by him. All this is questions that come up whenever you have somebody who does big bombastic mitzvahs in your backyard, and it gets on your nerves. You just have to know this shit is to discuss everything that we discussed, and usually in the Bezdin we'll have to determine all these things. The Ramos says yesh chelkim, over here the Ramos meiko, yesh chelkim, the by a shutif. Huh? I said the last one is it's only nighttime. Only they stay at night. Huh?
Let's say like the Rabashman's place.
Yeah.
Right, so tons of people come only throughout the day to eat. I mean,
according to the Miriyosh, it's mutter. If it'll be a chatzar, yeah?
No, the neighbors can have tinus, nothing.
The neighbors could have tinus, what are you going to do about it? He made it all into a chatzar. He put up a native over there, so it became a chatzar. Be a loch, it's a chatzar, no? A chatzar, a mavoi maybe. It's a mavoi.
It's not chatzar, there's no other houses that open up on it.
The Rama says that yesh chalkim, by that shutef is allowed to mean someone is allowed to fill up his whole house with diurim as long as he doesn't extend the building, because the kfeda is only according to essentially kfeda is only for adding in construction, not adding in quantity of people. Just interestingly, you should just know that when it comes to people who have condos, there is laws about how to calculate common costs. And there are laws about how to do it. Some of them would go based on units, some of them like based on square footage of each unit, regardless of how many people live there. Some places will start making restrictions based on the marshal water bills, one bill for the whole building. Not each one has a meter. That's how it works. 1 meter for the whole building. So if you have a person who has a big apartment, 4 bedrooms, because he likes a big apartment, it's only a couple. And you have somebody who has a 2-bedroom and he has 8 kids over there. Person with 8 kids is using a lot more water. But if you go based on square footage, he's going to pay less per month. Some places would go based on the amount of people. Some places go, no, it's based on the amount of square footage. It's much easier for cheshbonos to keep it along square footage because you're shutaf in this specific square footage and you pay whatever it is. The Smeh points out that the Ramah is cholik only by a shutaf. The yesh cholim is only by a shutaf, not by a seicher. The seicher has no, even according to the yesh cholim, the seicher has no right to be moisif diurim. Now, if a seicher could then go and sublet his the Smeh Sifkot and Hay. Now, if you have a seicher who wants to then go and rent it out to somebody else, so that you have a discussion in Shin Tezvav, Shin Design, that if it's the same amount of people, if originally you were allowed to do it, if originally you were not allowed to do it, it's later on the Choshen Mishpat, and usually it's mutter, unless it's a specific condition, faket. Over here, what would be relevant is if you're moisef b'diurim or not, right? So if I'm a shutef, and I rented it out to somebody who has a family with 4 people, and then he goes and he then sublets it to Bachrim, and there's 100 people going to be there in mattresses, it's a problem because you could be ma'akev on him. Yeah? Even though if it would be the same amount of people, Lav Dafki would be able to ma'akev unless you specifically stated that your subletting is prohibited. And the Ramah continues, according to this daya, a shutef even is allowed to split his house into separate units, as long as he does not make an extension, he could rent it out, even if they have only one bathroom in the chutzner, and the other person in the chutzner cannot be ma'akev on him, even though that there's only one bathroom, he's going to have issues that there's only going to be one bathroom, there's more people using, a little bit of hezek being added, the more people are going to be using it. The Gra and Sefkot and Gimel right away says that the reason is very simple. If you're allowed to be moisef diurim, you're obviously, there's more people going to be using the bathroom. So it's included in the heter to be moisef diurim. According to the Ramah, is a heter you have to suffer with the fact it's only going to be the same amount of bathrooms for that amount of people. But the Pischei Tshuva brings over here the Dogel Mirvava. There was only one bathroom in the chutzner. You could be ma'akev because there's no more bigger hezek than somebody having now. There was only 4 people living in the chutzner, 2 couples, and they only had one bathroom. So they knew their times, whatever it is, or they had to wait 5 minutes, 10 minutes for the bathroom. Now this guy's marba diurim, and there's 20 people there. The other person is losing out from it. Yes, he says over there he's going to come, he's going to need the bathroom, and yimtzo no, it's locked. What's he going to do? It's a hezek, a big hezek for him. So Dogel Mevava explains that this, where it says that even one Beis HaKisei, or Beis HaKisei echad, you can't be ma'akev, is when it's more than one Beis HaKisei, each one has his own Beis HaKisei, but it flows to the same pit. And if it flows to the same pit, over there you can't be ma'akev. You're going to have you're going to have more, it's going to have to be emptied out more often. Well, it's not such a big hezek, he says. But obviously but now, it just common sense would dictate, and it seems like it also, that if there is, seems like it's also from over here, from Shulchan Aruch, from this Dogel Mevava, if it's going to be a serious hezek, for example, if the sewer line is only able to handle 2 bathrooms, you're now going to add 6 bathrooms over here, then the person who's adding should be responsible for taking care of whatever additions, because that is a visible hezek. I did see that some of the poskim in this, I searched some of these like little disputes you have about the din in Eretz Yisrael. One between people that know a lot of halacha. One of them says that the same din of this Dogel Mirvava about waiting for a bathroom, you can't be moisef diurim if it's only one bathroom, would apply in the building when there's only a certain amount of people living in the building and you're moisef diurim and now you have to wait longer for the elevator. It's all the same thing as waiting longer for the bathroom. But I also saw over there, the Chazon Ish says that the hezek of Amtan is not really a hezek. Based on this mechaber, that if you understand the Beis HaKisei issue, not like the Dogel Mirvava, it's mashma that the hezek Amtan is not enough of a hezek to do it. So the fact that you have to wait longer for the elevator, based on that, is not really a hezek. For Dogel Mirvava, yes, you could say that the hezek Amtan is a hezek. But you have a machlekes mechaber, Amol and Maaseh, what do you do? So the Divrei Chaim and Chelik Beis, Siman Tazayin, says that Sai over here and Sai in the first Seif, whoever does in his own property is muchzuk in what he does. Either that whoever does in his own property, you can't stop him because he's muchzuk in what he does. That's based in the Marshach. And because ultimately it's a suffix, so whoever's a muchzuk is a muchzuk. And even if you're going to say it's not really a suffix, even if you're going to say there's no real muchzuk because it's not really a suffix, it's still the majority of the poskim paskin like the Ramah that you cannot be ma'akiv in this one to be Moisef Diurim, and therefore when you have a suffix, even if there is no muchzuk, you go according to the Reva Poskim, and even more so, the minig in the days of the Divrei Chaim is that you are allowed to add more people into your, you are allowed to sublet or add more people into your unit without a problem, and since they're shutfim, you go after the minig amokim. The Ruach Chaim of Rav Chaim Palaji says that the machzik could always say kimli, like those ones, but according to the Divrei Chaim, it's not stam kimli, it's lachatchila you're allowed to do it because you're muchzik or safek muchzik. Now, by the way, I mentioned in the beginning, it's a machlekes Rashba Ritva about mavoi or chotzer versus mavoi. So the Rashba writes, the Rashba and the Ramban says that all this only applies to a chotzer because a chotzer is where the Reif Tashmishim, according to the Mechaber, the shit of the Rambam, the Reif Tashmishim is in the chotzer and you have the Shiloh of Hezekiah. But by a mavoi, if it's a mavoi, you don't have bechlal that issue. That's the Rashba and Chelik Gimel Kufayin Hein, Chelik Beis Siman Zayin, and the Ritva and Siman Chav Zayin and Shas Tshuva so that it also applies by a mavoi. But anybody who discusses it, almost all the poskim don't mention the word mavoi when it comes to these simonim. And obviously, according to the Rambam's Mistaber, it's only in a chotzer. And then you're going to go into a shaila. What's considered? If you're going to go based on the Rambam, mitzad the Reif Tashmishim is a chotzer. That's is a backyard of meshut of the few people. That considered the chotzer. That considered the mavoi. As a bungalow colony, considered the chotzer. Is considered the mavoi. Is the lobby in your building considered a mavoi? Mitzad what do you do in the backyard? You do a barbecue, and in the lobby you don't do a barbecue. So maybe it's not. Maybe the lobby is a mavoi, and the chotzer is not so. And then the Ramah continues about the other thing. That if it's all of this only applies in the chotzer, but not in a house. In the house, people are much more makpid. And even if you're a shutef in the house and you do have a right, whatever you're allowed to do in the chotzer, if you are allowed to bring more people, you're not allowed to bring more people. All that does not apply to a house. But a house, a person is more makpid. And with that, we conclude the first two sifim of Kuf and Daled, which discuss the general rules of shutfim, and Sif Gimel and An is going to discuss the next part.